Awesome. So I am Isabella, and some of you know me well, some of you don't know me very well. And my short intro is that I'm a somatic biz and leadership coach. And I approach my work from the framework of intimacy. And that means having a really, really deep connection and attachment to all parts of yourself. And I call this sovereignty work because, the way that we are conditioned to be in the world, we attach ourselves to all of these ego narratives and stories about ourselves that weren't true, that we learned usually in our childhood, in our families, in our communities, about who we are. And coming home to ourselves, coming home to the truth of who we are, to what we're here to do, is really so much of the work in business, of success in business, right? Because you are embodying the person, the CEO of your business. And there's a lot that goes with that, but I'll leave it there. So formally, I was trained as a trauma psychologist, and I also have a 4-year certification in somatics, which was also intimacy based, and it involved, there was tantra work, energy work. I'm an intuitive, I channel, and I offer mind, body, spirit frameworks and trauma responsive tools for you to navigate the inner journey of social impact business without burnout, without overwhelm, right? Really like riding the place where, yes, you're doing uncomfortable things, you're doing courageous things, but you're doing it in a way that doesn't blow you out. And I also have a second business where I'm an intimacy mentor supporting revolutionary relating and conscious relationships. So I love doing the deep relationship work, and I also love doing the relationship work inside of business, right? Because what you're doing is you're building relationships. You're building a relationship to your audience. Like all of that is relationship based. So I want to acknowledge something before we get into this topic is that, a lot of times we focus on our brains, love to focus on the external strategies in business. Oh, like, what is the tag? And we get lost on building a sales page. And those things are important. We need to know sort of what systems, what platforms we're using, right? All of that stuff is important. And there's a way that our brains can get really invested in that. And then we sort of neglect the humaning aspect of business. And a lot of us get derailed. And I say us as entrepreneurs, a lot of us get derailed. A lot of people give up. Businesses fail, not because they aren't amazing ideas, they are, but because of the overwhelm, because their nervous systems can't handle it, or they're working too hard, or they're working in ways that go against their body. And so they get sick, they experience burnout. They lack clarity. And so if you don't have clarity, it's going to come through in your messaging. And when you confuse people, you lose your customers, right? Or you get into overthinking and you don't take action, right? You get into like, oh, well, what if I do it this way? What if I do it that way? And it just creates too much noise. That's also overwhelming. So people give up because of all of these factors. And so a lot of that is what I want to talk about here, is about like not getting into those spaces, because those spaces are going to happen. Like I get into places where I lack clarity, and that's a sign for me to step back, right? And I have been in high burnout jobs, and I have gotten burned out, and I have gotten sick. And, part of the reason why I've designed the business that I have in the way that I have is to absolutely minimize that or eliminate it altogether and just create lots of time for rest and lots of spaciousness so that I can like really, really care for myself in all the ways that I need. And I need a lot of care. And I also want to acknowledge, like, we are living in late stage capitalism. Things are not slowing down astrologically speaking. Like, shit is intense and it's not slowing down. And so we have to build ways for us to slow down ourselves so that we can show up in the healing work that is so needed in the world. And I don't care if you are an actual healer or if you have a photography business, you are doing healing work. If you are allowing people to be seen or to see themselves, or if you are holding space in some way, if you are creating a space for people to be exactly who they are, you are doing healing work, in my opinion. Okay. So the nervous system capacity piece is so important because in a fluctuating economy, in such uncertain times like we live in, humaning skills in business is, results in your ability to get scrappy and creative, right? To be able to pivot if you need to, like when, in COVID, like, okay, we shut it down. We opened, I shut down my brick and mortar within 2 months and I opened an online community. It was like, all right, here we go, boom. It helps you recommit to your goals when you feel like, oh my God, I'm overwhelmed. This is too much. Okay, all right, stop everything. Whew, let's take a breath. Let's find our center and let's recommit. Let's make a decision to show up in this way. Or let's attend to our emotions. I'm having a lot of feelings come up, mostly fear, right? Or I'm having a healing process, right? There's like ancestral stuff coming up that is affecting the way that I show up in my business. I need to take some time to take care of myself and to examine that or explore that. So these are all of the reasons why nervous system skills are so important. And life continues to happen. Like that's just stuff that comes up with your business. But then there's the stuff like going through a nasty divorce, or you might have a resurgence of trauma from your past or mental health issues coming up unexpectedly, which actually happened to a lot of us this year for some reason, or you or a family member might get sick, right? So all of those things make life, life is messy. It just is messy by design. And holding yourself through the mess is that nervous system capacitation that you can still hold the mess, hold the complexity, and still show up for your mission in a way that feels aligned, right? Like recently I've been feeling so hermity. I haven't really wanted to do like a funky, quirky reel on Instagram. I haven't, because that would be out of integrity. That would be betraying where I am right now in my process. So I just show up in a way that feels okay. I write my long posts or whatever. I post a picture, I shit post, and that feels okay. So when I teach about business and entrepreneurship, I don't just want you to have a business where you get paid. I want you to have a business where your healing process is part of your business design. And that means entrepreneurship as a spiritual path where your spiritual growth runs parallel to your business growth, resting, making room for integration when you stretch yourself in ways that feel edgy, unwinding systems of oppression from your system, right? Like capitalistic hustle and burnout culture, and also dismantling patriarchy in how you sell and how you market, and whiteness from how you show up online, right? Like online visibility and having your front facing match what's happening in the back, and also creating models of redistributing wealth in your business structures, right? And the truth is, as I've experienced, building and running a business, especially one that is an expression of your mission and your passion, is going to bring up all your shit, right? We all have fears around rejection and abandonment and too muchness or not enoughness, right? We feel like imposters sometimes, like, oh, this is all a fluke, right? If we experience success or scarcity, right? Like, oh, you get all tight, or we feel emotions like grief, grieving the old parts of us that we need to leave behind in order to really step into the limelight, like step into receiving. We experience rage, when some of our boundaries are violated, or when we violate our own boundaries. We feel shame when we show up online and we express our gifts, right? When we actually show up shiny and like, hey, here I am, right? It brings up a lot of shame for people. We have nervous system freeze responses that are totally involuntary. And we have parts that are protecting us that run directly in opposition to what we want, right? So entrepreneurship is not a safe activity for your nervous system. Your nervous system is going to do all the things to keep you safe because it thinks you're out there in the jungle with tigers and other beasts, but really, the real threat to your nervous system is more emotional, right? You're not going to be physically harmed by showing up online, but there are emotional threats that are related to attachment, intimacy in your early life. So, and learning how to work with your nervous system accelerates your process of growth and capacitation. So it helps you manage the time between, when you get triggered. I don't like to use the word trigger. I use the word activation. It helps you manage the time between activation and response. And it's especially important for you to open up your capacity to receive and hold more abundance. And finally, staying grounded and finding your way back to clarity when things get clouded and confused is an ongoing process, believe me. So yeah, your nervous system needs to be able to be spacious and flexible in order to pivot, to shift, to like adjust to whatever's happening in the outside, right? We just kind of do this all the time. And in order for you to be really successful, you're going to be required to dissolve any and all parts of you that believe you can't do this, truly. And this is the whole process. This is where people need the most support in business. And I'll talk a little bit about more about that when I go into the 5 pillars. So, I define success not just by how much money you make, but how much peace you feel within yourself making it, how much freedom you have in your life to do what you love and to be exactly who you are. So just want to talk again about like why nervous system capacity and flexibility is important. It allows you to scale with clarity and trust in your creative vision. It helps you identify fear stories when they come up and helps you to know how to move them. It helps you transform your intimacy wounds or your identity wounds into leadership superpowers. It helps you magnetize your people by being the most boldly expressed version of yourself while giving as few fucks as possible doing it. It helps you manage your emotional activations with responsiveness and show up grounded for challenging conversations or situations, right? Because you're going to have those with clients. And it helps you to feel safe to receive increasing amounts of abundance, right? And abundance, I mean clients, attention, money, collaborations, and to enjoy an unshakable connection to intuition, like using your body like a sacred GPS in your business. And again, navigating the high sensation landscape of entrepreneurship with a sense of responsiveness and flow. Okay, so here are the 5 pillars of body-based business. I just gave you a whole spiel on why it's important to really pay attention and to listen to your nervous system. I want to say one thing before we get into the 5 pillars is that, we're not taught to connect to our nervous system, right? That's the first step in the process is becoming like a good body listener. And I'll teach about that in a later workshop, in a later live. But I want you to think as your nervous system as like the refrigerator humming in the background of your life. You don't listen to the refrigerator humming. You don't hear it anymore. And in the same way, we don't really hear what our nervous systems are telling us. We really have to tune in. We have to sort of shut out all of the other noise to be able to listen to that. Okay. So here are the 5 pillars. Mindset is the first one. So I'm starting with mindset because even though it's the thing that most coaches talk about, it's also the ongoing work that tends to drop off for a lot of people. we get lazy about it, or we don't think we have to do it anymore. We have a really good day and then we don't do it the next day. And then we find ourselves in a shitty story the day after that. So it is absolutely critical that you curate your mental space daily so that the itty bitty shitty stories aren't taking the wheel of the car, right? Like they can be in the back seat, they can be in the trunk of the car, preferably they're hanging outside of the window, but they don't get to take the wheel of the car, at least like only for a second if you happen to like, not catch them. But every day you have to decide, what are the thoughts that you're choosing to believe? Every day you have to make a decision and a choice about what program you're going to run with. Are you going to run with the old program? Are you going to run with the traumatized way of being program? Or are you going to run with the program that is about you being who you are in the world, about doing what you came to do? Are you running with the program of your soul's mission, right? That kind of thing. So this is not easy work. This is like the daily morning routine. This is your mental toning, like you would tone your muscles, and it pays off over time so that you can embody that audacious self-belief. The other piece around mindset is prioritizing your body and what you feel inside of it instead of intellectualizing or trying to figure it out. So white culture, whiteness, prioritizes intellect over feeling, strategy over sensation, functioning over feeling, right? And in business, this gets you stuck really, really fast and slows you down because there's an attempt, because you're overriding, there's an attempt to override your nervous system that's trying to keep you safe, right? Your nervous system thinks it's in danger, it's trying to keep you safe, and you're like, when you are attempting to intellectualize, you're bypassing everything that's happening below the neck. And so it actually makes, it's the alarm bells get louder and stronger. So you really want to stop and slow down and tune in. And that helps you accelerate. It's sort of ironic. It's paradox. It's a paradox. Slowing down actually helps you speed up. That's what I want you to take away from today, if anything. So the other piece is that, beliefs don't just live in our brains. They're connected to sensations in the body. So when you're having a shitty thought, you're not just having it in your brain, it's often connected to a sensation in your body. And in order for you to be able to move past some of the fear responses that you have to be able to attune to what's happening in your body. You have to make your body the boss of your business versus your mind. And your mind is in service of your body. Obviously, your mind comes up with all of these beautiful creative ideas. Your creative energy lives all over your body, not just in your brain. But it really is about listening and attuning and slowing yourself down so that all of those parts can come with you. So that's mindset. The second pillar is emotional fluency. Entrepreneurship will require that you become attuned. Again, attunement is an attachment experience, attuned to the needs of your emotional body and its unique energy signature. Why? First, a lot of feelings are going to come up, like I said, and you have to be able to manage them in a way that isn't about suppression or bypassing. It's about allowing them to move through your body without attaching to the feeling. This is the important part. It's the space, right, between you observing the feeling and experiencing the feeling. This is what they teach you in somatics. Like you can observe and you can experience at the same time. But often what we do is we believe what we're feeling and we get attached to it. We get caught up in it, in its web, right? And then we're caught up in its web and we're like all tight. So for example, I felt a lot of fear and excitement also about showing up live today. And I let myself feel all the insecurities. I was just kind of noticing like, oh yeah, I'm afraid I'm going to fuck it up. I'm afraid I'm going to say something wrong. I'm going to stumble over my words, which actually happens a lot with me. Being multilingual probably also. And I held space for that. And before I got on the live today, I danced, I shook it out, right? Like noticing and giving your body the space to like move them through without, and I wasn't really like, no, but I know my shit. Okay, so I'm going to go online and do it. So my body had a need to be comforted in the fear, and I was able to hold space for that before going live instead of trying not to feel it or like, oh, don't be afraid, and sort of like push through or push it down. That actually makes it come back stronger. So you want to be a good listener to what's happening in your emotional field so that you can let whatever is arising be felt, to flow, and to release. And over time, as you practice this, as you practice listening and allowing, you learn how to trust the medicine of your emotions and learn how to work with the activations from a place of curiosity instead of judgment, like, oh, why am I feeling this, right? Because then you're shaming, then you're like pushing down. Yeah, and the thing with emotions and nervous system that I talk about a lot is that in the ways that we grow up, we learn to fear certain emotions. We learn to fear rage, usually anger. There are taboo emotions, right? We don't like to feel shame. That's a very difficult experience to have. And so our nervous systems get really like, we're not going to feel those. And so we have freeze responses around actually feeling certain feelings. So part of the work is de-icing or thawing the freeze response around having and enjoying certain emotions. So the third pillar is identity. Ooh, this is one of my favorite parts of the work that I do, and also one of the most critical aspects of capacitating your nervous system for the type of success that you envision, because it has to do with integrating your intimacy wounds and healing your ancestral lines, which goes into collective trauma of systems that we grow up in, that our ancestors grew up in. And it goes into the deeper cellular stuff that we hold in our body through epigenetics. So there's a piece around visibility, right? The fears of being seen and having people reject us or abandon us. Healing our witch wounds, right? Often shows up in the like tightness in the throat. It is about unveiling your archetypal superpowers through shadow alchemy, right? Shadow work. On the level of ego, it is eradicating all the ways you've learned to play small in your life, in your love life also, as well as in business, releasing shame through the body. Intimacy wounds affecting your relationship to your audience. For example, this is so important. How do you talk to your people in your marketing? Right? Do you feel like they're schmucks? Do you treat them like they're schmucks, like they don't know anything? How do you project your fears onto them? Do you expect them to reject you? Are you already expecting them to believe that you don't know what you're doing? Right? How does your relationship with yourself and all parts of yourself affect the energy that you show up with when you do go online, when you do make a live or a reel or something like that? So as you can see, the identity piece is about embodying the CEO, but there's so much more that goes with it, right? There's like the bigger picture. And ultimately, the goal of the identity work is coherence. Coherence is when all parts of you are pointed towards one goal, right? What we often experience in our lives is that, if we're thinking about the car metaphor again, right? Like your higher self has its hands on the wheel. What we often experience is incoherence, like the front wheels of the car are going this way, but the back wheels are going another way. And, one part of you is saying, yes, let's put this offer out into the world. And the other part is saying, fuck no, we're not doing that. That's freaking scary, right? So that's when we experience incoherence or incongruence. And so coherence is like getting all parts of you on board. And that's an ongoing process, right? Like what you say matches how you say you be. Like, oh no, who you are matches who you say you be, is how I think of coherence. All right, so pillar number 4, boundaries. Vital, very important, probably most important. It's most important to building self-trust. Boundaries in your business means being a reliable and consistent steward of your energy, i.e., not hustling or extracting or overgiving, which healers are often known to do because we have such beautiful, big, soft hearts, and we feel the suffering of the world and we want to help people, but we also want to do it from a place of abundance and fullness so that we can feel like, right? Like really good. We really have to resource ourselves so well. We have a big job to do. So you do this by meeting your body's emotional, physical, and spiritual needs, right? That builds trust in your system. When you extract from yourself, when you overwork, when you overgive, you're not caring for your energy, and your energy is like, oh, this person is not doing right by me. And so that erodes self-trust. You're overriding a need for rest, for play, for creativity. And boundaries help you take responsibility for how you steward your energy. And that includes what you charge, obviously, because that factors into how much you're giving versus how much you're getting in return, the energy exchange for your services. And it requires a connection to your needs, which is where I feel a lot of people are disconnected because of how our needs are shamed. We actually don't feel need in our bodies. We're like, oh, well, I guess I have needs, but we're not actually in tune with them in our bodies. Okay, so the final pillar is pleasure. So this is so important. I left it for last because it's really important. So you probably hear a lot of talk in the coaching world about the importance of pleasure. And, we think of pleasure as, we put sexual connotations to it, but on a nervous system level, what this means is creating safety by grounding and soothing yourself through the places you get activated. So sometimes it will look like, for example, you're posting something online that is fuck honest, and as a result, very vulnerable. And your head, your brain is doing all sorts of like, what do they think of me? Oh my God, I'm going to get canceled. Oh shit, I want to erase it. Or I want to wow, I can't believe I just did that. And it's like, okay, what do you need to do to ground yourself right now? Do you need to move? Do you need to take a walk outside? Right? Do you need to take a bath right now? You need to go bake something in the kitchen. Whatever you do, like maybe it's, right? Like as you're on video, perhaps, maybe it is just like putting your hands on your thighs and just kind of giving yourself a squeeze, letting yourself know that you're there. It can take on so many forms, right? Soothing can be, you can do it using touch. You can do it with an activity that you experience as pleasurable. It could be telling yourself the things that you need to hear in order for you to calm down and right? Okay, that feels better. So, and sometimes it's just like experiencing a deeper sensual perspective on appreciating the beauty and magic of everyday life, like just the mundane, like taking a look around your space and focusing on something that makes you happy, and actually sometimes it can be about self-pleasuring. Sometimes it's about experience the full range of your emotions, right? Including the parts of you maybe that want to push people away or that want to control people. We want to experience pleasure in those parts also, because those are parts of your sexual and creative energy. And of course, pleasure is the pathway to abundance because it will push up against scarcity conditioning in your nervous system. So actually practicing and recognizing and celebrating the abundance you have now opens you up to more. This is about embodying sufficiency. I remember exactly 2 years ago, I was in a like a rough spot where I was like moving. I was in between homes. I had lost my home. I had needed to evacuate my home because a tree branch fell on my house, and I was moving from one Airbnb to another. And we were living in different neighborhoods, and I was like, wow, so let's enjoy the neighborhood. And we would I kept doing this over and over again of like receiving the beauty and having fun and prioritizing play and rest. And I felt there were moments where my nervous system got really like full. It felt like it wanted to burst because it was so abundant, and I was really stretching my nervous system. So pleasure can be an expansive practice. Whew. So if you're watching the replay, let me know that you're here, say hi, and drop your questions. Those are the 5 pillars that support the embodiment of safety and trust, which is the goal of my coaching, but it's also a process that deepens and evolves over time. And these 5 pillars are a repeatable process. It's a streamlined way to come home to yourself. And as I said earlier, it's an accelerator, right? It's a slowing down and a tuning, but it accelerates. And you know what the best part about body-based business is? Saving the best for last. It is an unshakable connection to intuition. I used to joke that I turned people into witches, because when we would do trauma healing work, we would be like listening to the body. And when you listen to your body, you connect to intuition, and you expand your intuitive capacities. So, when people work with me, they inevitably develop their witchiness and their mystical powers. And it's one of the biggest gifts of embodiment for me in my own journey as well, because I began to channel when I started healing trauma through my body. And, for me, the body is a spiritual experience, because there's all of this ancestral wealth and knowledge that can be accessed through sensation in the body. So saying hello. And my business runs on intuition. I do everything intuitively. Like, even opening up this Facebook group was like, I was resisting it. I was like, I don't really want to do it. I don't want to do it. And then Spirit was just like, today is the day. Boom. And I did it that day, So I wait for the okay from the guides. So that's it. That's the 5 pillars. I want to hear your questions. I want to, let's get into the nitty gritty. Like, for the next 7 weeks, you have me in this group. If you're in the Facebook group, if you're watching this on YouTube, drop your questions. And I'd love to hear and respond. All right. I'm here to build relationships, so take advantage. All right. Bye, everybody.